This episode is sponsored by Afimilk. And joining us today from Afimilk is Jen Weber. Jen is Customer Success and Operations Director for Afimilk North America, and she spent her career in the cow monitoring space, specializing in the technical and application aspects of cow monitoring systems. So, Jen, Tommy talked about finding balance between running the dairy business, but also leading a life where he's prioritizing family, health, faith, and relationships. And this is possible for Tommy because they've invested a lot in not just finding the right people at Swiss Lane Farms, but giving the people the tools that they need to be successful. And one of those tools is technology. And so let's take a moment to talk about how technology can help farms like Swiss Lane and others that you serve to eliminate some of the major pain points that a lot of farms experience. And so, Jen, how does Afimilk help make that possible without sacrificing herd health or negatively impacting the bottom line of the dairy?
So first off, thank you for having me today. And yeah, happy to answer that question. So I think that there's a whole multitude of reasons that I could talk about today, but we would be here for all day. So I'll just speak to one of them because I think it has profound impacts, and a lot of dairymen think it's such a minor thing. But a really good example is the hospital pen. So the hospital pen is an aspect of the dairy that most dairymen cannot live without. But if we incorporate technology and we start to have a mindset shift, we can find that we can really maintain and increase the well-being and cow comfort of these animals by just shifting the way that we manage the hospital pen a little bit. So for instance, I like to say keep them where they are happy. So if we take a traditional setting where we utilize the hospital pen for all of our sick animals, what does that look like? So we take an animal that we know she's getting sick and we move her out of her normal routine, her normal space where she's comfortable. And now we have put her in a completely new environment where, let's be honest here, she hates everyone and everyone hates her. So she's trying to reestablish that hierarchy within her group. All the while, we are poking and prodding her, and we're expecting her to make this huge adjustment, usually over a week period, and also maintaining milk production and getting better and adjusting to her new life in this new group. It's a lot to ask, and we're now putting her through all these stress events. When we insert technology, we're able to find those cows, hours, days in advance, and we're able to now provide proactive treatments. We're ultimately reducing the number of touches on her because we can provide a proactive treatment while maintaining her in her normal group, and we never have to bring her out into the hospital pen. And that also saves on time, money. We're now increasing our labor efficiency because we don't need to pull her out of that pen. We're saving on antibiotic treatment costs because we're usually doing, a drench or something more proactive, so we don't have to put her through an entire withdrawal period. We're able to keep that milk because we're not having to withdraw her milk. And a lot of times we're also reducing any vet costs. So having just that one specific example is a really great example of that.
Yeah, that is a great example, Jen. And I appreciate what you brought up here about really what happens to that cow when she enters a sick pen. Not only is she under the stress of being off in some way physically and metabolically, but she also is now in underneath environmental stress from the other animals that she is now in that little herd group with. And so you bring up a really interesting point about this whole realm of stress that's much bigger than the sickness that brings a cow to the pen in the first place. But also to your point of we often talk about looking at ways to save on labor efficiency and how technology can help with that. And so I'm curious for you, what have you noticed with some of the dairies that you serve of how the hospital pen looks differently after bringing in some technology to be able to find those cows before they get sick and ever even have to enter a pen? What does the sick pen look like after they've really got up to speed on utilizing technology to monitor health and catch those events before they occur?
Honestly, in a lot of dairies, the hospital pen is like the critical care intensive unit, as I would call it. So you're seeing those animals that are truly like need the vet's attention. So you can isolate them in this pen now, so the vet has quick access to them. And for the most part, I do know of some dairies that have completely eliminated their hospital pen. They just don't see the need for it. And instead, like I said, I would call it more of like an isolation unit, because you've dwindled it down so much to the point where you don't have that many cows that need critical care. And I think that's a huge testament
Mm.
to really good herd management. I'm not saying that every dairy that doesn't have a hospital pen is great and every dairy that does have a hospital pen is poorly managed. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that when you're applying the technology correctly and you're able to find all those little nuances and really utilize the data to your strengths and increase that cow comfort and well-being, there's not necessarily a need to have that sick unit any longer. And just default having that technology and able to change that management where you're leaving the cows alone and letting them kind of naturally come out of it with proactive treatment. So when you're able to manage your cows like that, you just find that everything else is kind of that domino effect. You find your increased cow comfort, you find decreased vet visits, you find your decreased shot costs, and you just find that the the overall environment of the farm is just a lot better run.
So you've talked a lot so far, Jen, about this health piece of the cow and how technology can be an asset for that. But that's not the only way that producers are using technology for their benefit. Talk a little bit more about the other aspects that come into play with the dairies that you work with.
The biggest three that I can think of that most dairymen want to talk about is health. We've already touched on repro and labor. So I'll talk to labor first. So I think that labor efficiency is a huge aspect. Normally, you've got, I don't know, it depends on how your normal routines are run, but you might have a crew of 2 to 3 guys that are going out and catching cows and setting up for breeding, whether that's injecting hormones or catching them to breed. You normally have one person on the front side of the cow, one person on the back side of the cow, and then you've got a floater that's usually helping to shuffle cows in and out. So when you insert now technology, more specifically the Affi collar that has the rumination heat detection, and if you insert a sort gate, which is also a part of our product suite, now you have the ability for one person to go in front of that computer every single morning, bring up the heat report, assign those cows a code, because we don't have to second guess. We know these cows are absolutely in heat and these cows are going to get bred today. Now we can assign them a code, they can get cut in the sort gate, and now depending on how the facilities are set up, you can either have 1 or 2 people at the most managing those cows and getting those cows bred. Whereas before you might have 2, 3, even more than that. So now we don't have to necessarily eliminate any positions, but now we've increased labor efficiency by labor reallocation. So now we can take that person that's now freed up their time and we can dedicate their time to a different part of the dairy that maybe have been overlooked, or we didn't get to spend as much time focusing on that part of the dairy. So it really, really saves time and money from that standpoint.
Jen, so you just outlined this beautiful vision of being able to couple the monitoring technology through collars and integrate that into a sort gate system. I've actually been able to see that on a dairy that's been using AffiTech, and that is the dairy of Brandon Mendoza, who was on one of our previous Uplevel Dairy podcasts. And it was really cool to see that streamline of efficiency and how he was actually able to remove some of the skill set that he used to need for someone in that parlor to be able to identify suspect cows and to be able to flag those cows for treatment. That person didn't need to be there because of the accuracy and the reliability of a system that could do that through milk conductivity and then speak to the sort gate so that those cows would be able to be sorted out and have their individual attention as they need it. And so it's really cool that what you just outlined is something that is really a game changer for the dairies that are able to streamline their labor because of it. One of the things that I'd like you to share with us too, we've talked about the health, we've talked about the labor, but there's producers out there that also are seeing some great benefits of the tech when it comes to the number one goal of dairy producers, get cows pregnant, right? So how is that helping them?
Again, I'll speak on one specific aspect of that, which kind of ties everything together in the end. Actually, one of my farm management specialists and I, we were talking about this yesterday, and we had a good laugh because we had said the comment that timed AI is not necessary for service conception. And he is a lifelong dairyman. And he said that when he first heard that statement, he about just was left speechless. He said, that is not a thing in the dairy world. Everyone needs timed AI on first service conception. So I thought that was a really great example because he has the lived dairy experience. And I think it's a very profound statement to make. But when you break it down and you look at the fact that Farm software has the tools and the data to be able to compile into these reports. So one of the reports is the anestrus report. So if we take the anestrus report and we look at that, now we've identified accurately all the animals that are truly not cycling. So now if we switch our mindset into a individualized program for treatment of those animals, now we can customize the treatment for the anestrus cows instead of trying to apply a prophylactic treatment of a timed AI program broad spectrum across all these pens. And so when we do that, we actually find a lot of times that conception rates are actually higher because we're not forcing an animal into a heat cycle. We're letting her do it naturally. And most cows come into heat naturally between that 45 to 60-day cycle or days of milk range, which is when you're setting those animals up for shot protocols anyways. So why not just let her do it naturally? Because then you're reducing shot costs. You're increasing your labor efficiency by taking that person and able to reallocate them. When we start to treat those animals that are just on the anestrus report and we start to treat them individually, we're ultimately reducing our shop costs. We're increasing our labor efficiency by being able to reallocate that labor to a different task on the dairy. A big one that a lot of people don't think about is that we're maintaining that cow's milk production because now we're not forcing her to cycle with the hormone injections and she's able to keep that consistent milk production. So I would say that from a reproductive efficiency standpoint, if you are able to reduce or take away that first timed AI program and just let her come in naturally, right there, it's a complete savings of money. I mean, that it also trumps health, labor efficiency, everything else that comes with it. Just the repro costs alone is well worth it.
So, Jen, you've really outlined the ways that dairies are able to reduce costs and maintain cow health, get cows bred, and bigger picture, keep healthier cows around longer while making it easier for employees to do the job. And that all comes back to what we've talked about in this episode with Tommy from Swiss Lane is being able to live life how you want to live by making sure things are taken care of in your business, having the right people in the right places, and giving them the tools that they need to be successful. And so, Jen, anything else you'd like to add today?
No, I think if you want to know more, just contact one of our farm management specialists and we'll be able to tour you or run you through a demo. And I think that the way to learn the most about our product is to go see it. Like you said earlier at Brandon Mendoza's place, I think that truly being able to hear it from the dairyman's mouth and not me sitting here and telling you why it's so great, because it is great, but hearing it from the dairyman and why they use it every day and the reasons why they can't live without it, that's what makes me so passionate about this product.
Well, thank you, Jen. And we'll be sure to include links to find more of that information from Afimilk in our show notes. And so thank you for being the sponsor of this Up Level Dairy podcast. And thank you to our listeners out there for joining us today.